Everyone has a favorite story about when they were young and foolish, and this is going to be mine. This is a drawing of an admittedly prettified version of what I looked like when I was 18 in 1990. I'm young, foolish, and I'm reading Dylan Thomas's Adventures in the Skin Trade. In that book, it's an autobiographical, the Dylan Thomas character goes to London to make himself available to adventure. Early on, he gets his fingers stuck in a beer bottle, and he remains that way for the rest of the novel as he suffers various mishaps. Now, for some reason, I decided this was something I wanted to emulate, so I set off for London. It was before cheap air travel, so I had to get the bus. It was incredibly indirect. It went via every major English city. It took 24 hours to get to London. I arrived outside the Crown Pub in Cricklewood, very tired, which is the excuse for what I did next. I had no plans. I went down into the underground, and I was pleased to see on the map that there appeared to be a countryside area within reach of the tube. So I found an Army and Navy stores, I bought a tent, and I set off for Richmond. Now, Richmond wasn't quite as rural as I expected, but it was very nice. I visited an artisanal cheese shop. I climbed over a fence and found a woodland area surrounded by a beautiful park. I pitched my tent there in what I later discovered was Kew Gardens. It was a kind of secret idyll. Now, lots of these I was young and foolish stories, I've noticed, have a subtext which goes, I may have been young and foolish, but I was having an awful lot of sex. This isn't such a story. I was too shy to talk to anyone. I actually got mistaken for a sex worker once. I refused. And apart from that slightly odd encounter, some barmen, some shopkeepers, phone calls home to my worried parents, I spoke to no one for 2 weeks. I just sat in parks, and I wandered, and I wandered, and I wandered around London, wondering what I was going to do. Then one day, I was in a bookshop, and an old woman noticed that I looked a little bit forlorn and lost. She approached me and said that I looked like I was going to get into trouble, and if I did, I could ring her, and she gave me her number. At that point, I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I'd hardly eaten in a week. I had only 10 pounds left, but I still felt that I wasn't likely to need her help. However, that evening, as I was going back to my tent, I was grabbed from behind and thrown to the ground. I thought I was about to have my remaining 10 pounds stolen. In fact, I was arrested under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. When I was pulled to my feet, I found it was pretty serious. There was millions of policemen. There was burly policemen with machine guns. There was important policemen with policeman casual gear on. There was policemen with serious-looking dogs, one of whom found my lost tent peg. There was even the gamekeeper who'd spotted my tent looking like something from Roald Dahl. I got an armed police escort as I was brought into the station. I got put in a cell. I got good cop, bad cop. I got policemen shouting at me. I got policemen being nice to me. Sometimes I just got left alone in my cell, listening to distant sounds. But mostly I was interrogated. I was made to tell my story again and then again and again. They kept trying to confuse me. They'd start me, stop me. They'd come, they'd leave. They would repeat back details slightly changed. They even changed their own names from one introduction to the next. And changed their personalities. They fixated on odd details. They found this copy of Thus Spake Zarathustra in my tent. I was 18 after all. The policeman held it in my face and said, "Just tell me what it means, you bastard. Just tell me what it means." I tried, but I'm not sure I nailed it. In the end, they let me go. They said that they could see that I was either very stupid or very clever, and they decided I was very stupid. However, they cautioned that with only 10 pounds and no fixed abode, I was a vagrant, and they would charge me as such if I didn't leave London within 24 hours. So I rang up the old woman, Pearl, from the bookshop. I was pretty, 5 pictures aside, probably pretty unprepossessing and scary looking, but she took me in, gave me a couch to sleep on that night and a nice meal. Her generosity was kind of amazing, and she's the hero of this story. This, of course, is the villain. I don't mean anything I say to imply any sympathy for those vile murderers for whose crime I was arrested. And similarly, I don't wish to appear to be criticizing the police. I'm sorry that I wasted their time. As for my time under arrest, it was a bit scary. I didn't know how it was going to turn out when it was happening. But in retrospect, it was well worth it for the story. It's a story, as I said, it's my favorite story of when I was young. I've told it a million times. I've told it so many times that I've really lost any sense of the truth of it. Every time we tell a story, we change it slightly. We change it to suit the audience. We change it to suit a particular theme. We remove unlikely details and replace them with ones that sound truer. This story I've told so many times, I have no idea which parts are true and which parts aren't. I can't really remember how long I was arrested, for example. And I discovered that this was like being interrogated. Interrogation is a sort of storytelling. You keep retelling your story and you change it to suit what you learn to be the expectations of your interrogator. It's a collaboration. Interrogation is likely to invent lies as it is to uncover them. That's a bad thing about police confessions, but it's a good thing or a marvelous thing about the world. What's real is real, but we know it and remember it through the stories that we tell, retell, change. We live where nature touches narrative. And that's the thing I learned the summer I was arrested. Thank you very much.